a ship adrift in the middle of the Strait of Malacca. On its deck, the entire crew dead, eyes wide open, mouths twisted in a look of pure terror. And in their final distress call, tapped out in Morse code, just 2 words: "I die." Not a single wound on the bodies, not a drop of blood. And yet all of them dead at the same moment, including the ship's dog. It's one of the most chilling stories the sea has ever produced, but stay until the end because there's one detail that changes everything. This ship may never have existed. The story goes something like this. In 1948, in the waters of the Strait of Malacca, 2 American ships, the City of Baltimore and the Silver Star, picked up distress signals from the Dutch merchant freighter Ourang Medan. In Morse code, the message read, "SOS from the Ourang Medan. We float. All officers, including the captain, dead in the chart room and on the bridge. Probably whole crew dead." Then a burst of garbled dots and dashes, and one final line that freezes the blood. "I die." Then silence. The Silver Star drew closer to the strangely silent Dutch ship. Nothing moved on board. The calls got no answer. Not even the ship's dog barked. A rescue party climbed aboard, and what they found, according to the story, was like nothing they had ever seen. The ship was full of corpses, including the dog, the bodies lying on their backs, their frozen, seemingly terrified faces turned toward the sun. Mouths open, eyes staring straight ahead. No survivors were found, and no visible signs of injury on the bodies. The radio operator was still at his post, the captain on the bridge. All dead where they stood, as if something invisible had struck them down at once. And then, just as the Silver Star was preparing to tow the ship into port, came the thing that seals the legend. A fire suddenly broke out in cargo hold number 4, forcing the boarding party to abandon the Dutch vessel in a hurry, making any further investigation impossible. Shortly after, the Ourang Medan exploded before finally sinking. The ship went to the bottom of the sea, and with it, every answer. That's the story that has been circulating for decades. It sounds impossible. And this is where we have to stop, because the question isn't only what killed the crew, but whether that crew ever existed at all. Before that, what could have happened? Over the years, theories have been proposed. The favorite points to the cargo. Some versions credit the details to a single survivor, an unnamed German who swam to safety and was found by a missionary on an atoll in the Marshall Islands. Before he died, the man said the ship was carrying a badly stowed cargo of oil of vitriol, and that nearly the entire crew died from poisonous gases escaping from broken containers. Oil of vitriol is the old name for sulfuric acid. Another theory goes further. It suggests the Ourang Medan may have been involved in smuggling chemicals, like a combination of potassium cyanide and nitroglycerin, or even wartime stores of nerve agents. According to these theories, seawater got into the hold, reacting with the cargo to release toxic gases that suffocated the crew. It sounds plausible. It would explain the deaths without wounds and the explosion that followed. But there's a huge problem with that theory. It rests mostly on one very specific source. A German researcher, Professor Theodor Siersdorfer, found a publication from the 1950s titled "The Death Ship in the South Seas," which suggested the Ourang Medan was carrying potassium cyanide and nitroglycerin, the cause of the explosion. It was a 32-page pamphlet published in 1954 by Otto Mielke. And here comes the first crack in the story. British researcher Roy Bainton spent decades studying this case. Bainton came to doubt the authenticity of Mielke's details. He noticed Mielke seemed to know a great deal about the ship's possible route and cargo, yet gave no detailed sources, which was strange because his data on the Silver Star, right down to the tonnage and the captain's name, was well referenced. In other words, the hard facts appeared exactly where they could be checked, and vanished where it really mattered. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, because when researchers went looking for the ship in the official records, they found nothing. According to Lloyd's Register of Shipping, which has kept a record of every merchant ship since 1764, no ship called the SS Ourang Medan was ever documented, and there are no official reports of its sinking. No records were found in several countries either, including the Netherlands. Defenders of the story reply that the ship was registered in Sumatra, and that's why it doesn't appear. It's possible, but there's something harder to explain. The logbooks of the Silver Star show no record of any such rescue attempt. The rescue ship was real. The rescue operation is nowhere to be found. And now comes the biggest problem of all, the dates. Think about it. The story I've told you places it in 1948 or in June 1947. That's the most famous version. But it isn't the first. The story was told for the first time in Italy in 1940 and in England that same year before being repeated in 1948 and again in 1952. British newspapers ran the story in November 1940, claiming the sinking had happened in November 1939. In other words, the oldest version of the tale predates the official version by almost a decade. And it isn't only the date that changes. The different versions place the ship in the Strait of Malacca, but others put it around the Marshall Islands or the Solomon Islands. Thousands of miles apart, the inconsistencies are simply too many. Contradictory dates spanning almost a decade, locations separated by thousands of miles, a rescue ship that couldn't have been where it was supposed to be, and a single source, Silvio Scherli, tied to nearly every major telling of the story. That name, Silvio Scherli, is the key. The author, Silvio Scherli, vouched for the story's authenticity. A journalist from Trieste in Italy linked to the earliest versions. The same pen behind the myth. And in 2016, a researcher, Estelle Hargraves, combed through the British press archives and found what appears to be the original report from 1940. Her conclusion was as blunt as it was devastating. She stated that her new information proves this is a modern fabrication, an urban legend, or the nautical equivalent of one. Her theory about why is almost as unsettling as the story itself. That Scherli didn't get the attention he was after the first time, the story buried by the events of the ongoing World War. That perhaps he waited for the war to end, for the news to settle down, and tried again. There's the real mystery, not a poison gas, not a curse of the sea, but the possibility that the scene which opened this video, the bodies on their backs, the wide open eyes, the dead dog, the I die in Morse, never happened at all. That it was a tale rewritten until it seemed true, published and republished for 12 years, until the imaginary ship became for many more real than the records that disprove it. Because the Ourang Medan did sink. It sank in the retelling, not in the Strait of Malacca. And maybe that's the darkest lesson of all, that sometimes the most terrifying story isn't the one about the ghost ship, but how easily we can be made to believe in it. As the researcher put it, don't believe everything you read in the papers.